Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of This Ain't Fake Brother. My name is Neil Marshall, joined as always by Kenny. How you doing, Ken?
Neil, I used to enjoy doing the little brother gimmick underneath you, but you're hoganing up your brother more and more each week to the point that I'm essentially redundant over here.
Well, my plan is to just get to a point where you will be fully.
Okay. I see. That's fine.
It is the 10th of the 9th, 2014, by the time you'll be listening to this at the earliest. Myself and Ken had a really fun mixed martial arts show that was on Dublin City FM, 4 o'clock, 103.2 every Sunday. You can get in the archives at thisaintfake.com. The reason I'm speaking about it now is because I was still drunk from the night before and I was losing my mind about that Tito Ortiz thing. And I was
you were losing your mind, I recall that.
I actually wasn't.
I hadn't seen it at the time, I have seen it now.
And am I justified in how much I lost my mind?
It was a very silly thing. I thought Bonner actually was decent on the mic.
Ah, yeah.
But it was just so out of place. And when Justin McCulley took the mask off, it was like, who's that?
No, I never criticised Bonner's delivery. I just criticised the
And then Tito goes, you're a drug addict. And the mic like dropping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Oh, fuck.
And then...
I'm actually getting worked up now.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about pro wrestling. We've got all the news from the last week of the world of pro res. We'll be talking about last night's Monday Night Raw, an improvement on past shows. We'll also be going through...
Faint praise.
Very true, Ken. We'll be going through our podcast roundup as usual, even though this week I haven't heard much, so I'm hoping Ken has. And then we'll be doing our classic review, which is Halloween Havoc 93, or in layman's terms, the one that opens up with Tony Schiavone in the house with the kids.
Yeah.
So... here we go with some news, and Ken, I'm just going to throw these at you. Smackdown staying on Thursdays until the end of the year.
Fridays.
Is this because... it's staying on Fridays, not going to Thursdays. Is this because of Impact or what's happening?
To Wednesdays. Impact's on Wednesdays, rather.
Oh,
I believe it is because of ad rates. I think that even though the show that it will be on Thursdays instead, which was going to move to Fridays, their ratings will suffer so much that even though SmackDowns will gain quite a bit by going to Thursday, as we all know, wrestling's ad rates aren't great. So so that's the reason. But I think it's awful news for WWE because there was probably a 10% chance I would actually watch SmackDown if it were on a Thursday night and I could watch it on Friday when I go home from work. There's still a 0% chance now.
So they're saying it's to the end of the year. Is that definite, or could it be a case where it goes longer?
I think that the situation is fluid. I think they'll see what happens. But it just makes sense to be on Thursdays. I actually think, to get on my soapbox here, they if they could have gotten a live Tuesday thing, which they were obviously hoping.
Yeah, when was this? When were they thinking of doing this?
It would have been for October. It would have been for the new TV deal. That would have been perfect, I think.
Yeah, I would like to have gotten my...
The show would feel important if it was live.
It would feel important. You'd feel that there'd be such a... definitely. It would just feel important if it was live. And it'd be nice to get, your 3 days of WWE done in less than half a week in blocks.
To be fair, the only thing is, if it was live, they would hot shot more, which... I mean, there's already so much shite on Raw that it would have been maybe more of a chore to watch, whereas I understand, not that I watch it myself, but I understand that it's just kind of a simple wrestling show. Although, did you see, I saw an interesting stat the other day, that the average Raw match is about 90 seconds longer than a SmackDown match these days, and obviously that's not surprising because Raw is 3 hours.
Yeah,
but SmackDown was always the wrestling show, wasn't it?
Yeah, but also now SmackDown, they pretty much keep to an hour and a half. And because the majority of the...
So much recaps, isn't there?
Yeah, they've got a tremendous amount of Raw recaps, and a lot of the international markets who take less breaks than Sci-Fi, they have from the vault and stuff like that to bump it up to 2 hours. So, it's a shorter show by quite a margin. It's almost half the length.
To be honest with you, when I did previously watch it, it was so much more tolerable than the current version of Raw, the 3.5 hours.
The thing about SmackDown, and I was talking with Claire about this recently, every now and again something big would happen. Alberto Del Rio turning face and being the Big Show in the Last Man Standing match.
For the world title, yeah.
The Shield losing for the first time to Daniel Bryan. Every now and again, Vince, he's very irrational, he's very erratic, he'll get something in his mind. This week we're going to make SmackDown special. Yeah. And he'll do it, and then they'll forget Pal, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But my point is, Ken, I can't remember the last time they have done something big on SmackDown. Besides Age and Paige, I can't remember the last time.
Age and Paige?
I fucking did it again.
You did, you keep doing it. It's so easy, though, or to say Paige. Listen, another thing that I read that was very interesting. In the first 10 years of SmackDown, there were only 10 occasions, right, on which there was a match on Monday Night Raw, and there was an immediate rematch on SmackDown. Only 10 occasions the first 10 years. There are 10 times a year the past 2 years.
No surprise.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating.
No imagination and no surprise. But
it is like it's... Oftentimes when I have watched SmackDown, it's as though they think we're unique viewers, so they need to do the same thing they did on Raw.
They do, Ken. They do think that. Well, at least somebody does. Just about the Paige thing that I did there.
Paige, yeah.
Myself and Ken,
I'd like to never see these two women again.
Myself and Ken were going over to on a cruise. I'd won a cruise, and I picked Ken as one of my 4 compadres to go over on.
No, it's just the two of us, Neil. Tell the truth.
Ken, stop it. People are going to start talking.
Neil, you picked me because I was 21, and you needed a 21-year-old to go.
That is not true.
No,
I picked you because
you were older. It was a helpful offshoot.
The helpful offshoot was the fact that you were financially good while all of us were still in school.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, so myself and Ken and 2 others who will remain nameless. See, I'm on fire today. This is not what the story's about as well.
2 other homosexual gentlemen.
So we had a meeting up in our local pub at the time, the old Gaff and the PSLC. And I said to Ken, you won't fucking believe what's going on when we're over in Orlando. And Ken said,
oh, yes.
You're saying, Ken goes, oh my God, it's not Unbreakable, is it? And this was the fabled Unbreakable 2005 TNA show, which featured what has gone down in history and probably will as the greatest TNA main event of all time.
Greatest TNA match of all time, and in fact the only TNA match that was rated 5 stars by the esteemed Mr. Meltzer.
Yeah, and so when I told Ken this, we were going crazy, and we were running down what we thought the card would be. And I meant to say, I meant to say Monty Brown versus Abyss, but
what did you say instead, Neil?
Said Monty Abyss versus a Brown, which I think was incorrect, but inherently racist.
Oh, good times.
Yeah, so we just thought it'd be really a good idea for me to do a podcast because I'm so good speaking at.
I have to tell you a funny story actually that I wish I could have told at the time. Well, you know the way I was at TNA, or we were at TNA in 2005.
Sure.
And it was me, you,
David Rogers and Kieran Brady.
Yeah, the other 2 homosexual gentlemen. And originally Noel Noel Keeley was supposed to be one of the 4. I think he was Brady's spot, was he?
He was Brady's spot, yeah.
Okay. And when we went to the TNA show, we had a Where's Noel sign that we displayed. Remember this?
I do.
Okay, here's the story for you. When I went to TNA this year with my wife, I spent an hour that morning making up 2 signs. One that was like an AJ Styles, one that I wanted to get myself on television, and one that said, Where's Neil? And the thing is, we went and spent the day in the park, and I was like, well, I can't bring the signs around the park all day.
Oh, man.
And to get into TNA, they didn't do, I don't know if they did this when we were there, but they give tickets out around the park. So you don't just, you know the way we just went and queued?
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. So the only way you could do that is, some people don't use their tickets, so they had like a standby thing. But when we got there, they're like, yeah, you need to wait here because if you go, a big queue could form and you might not get in. So I was like, shit, I can't go back to the car and get my signs. So I never told you that, but
that is, well, Ken, I really appreciate the fact you were thinking of me.
I just remember with a Sharpie that morning, like a 12-year-old, you know what I mean?
Yeah, myself and Claire always do it. We always do like a few nights. The one night we'll stay in between when we arrive in Mania. We'll do the signs that night. It's always a real good fun. But just so people are not thinking that myself and Ken had the opportunity to go to Universal Studios and we spent the entire day in a queue. We were super sly about it, the way we did it. Myself, Ken, and the 2 other homosexual gentlemen took it in turns. One would wait in the queue while the rest would go and do the rides, or in their case, their ride. And then we would swap over.
Absolutely. Okay. Great times.
Great times. Well, they had a brilliant time. So, Daniel Bryan, no need, no surgery. It
Yeah,
comes
that's
out
good
now
news.
that he's getting feeling back in his right arm, and they've opted to stay away, abstain from the surgery, and they're expecting 3 months.
So should be back before the Royal Rumble.
You don't put him on the Rumble though, surely, unless he's fighting Lesnar. You
I don't
can't
know,
put him on
don't
the
quote me,
Rumble.
Shirley.
I'd do him in Lesnar easily. Might be the only time you get to do it,
Yeah.
and it really means that much.
Yeah, and he would have a rematch, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. But does he lose his first match back? Yes.
I don't know. I think you want to keep Daniel Bryan away from all that, but anyway.
As it comes closer to the date, we can fantasy book our holds off. You were speaking about Dave Meltzer earlier. There was a move at the ROH show this weekend called the Meltzer Driver that they did as a piss take because Dave Meltzer, as he does, this was the Young Bucks. Dave Meltzer always speaks highly of the Young Bucks, but it's a double-edged sword. He'll always say that they're
They do
very
too much moves.
yeah, too much going on. So Ken, do you want to explain? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay,
You?
explain. I have.
Right, it's basically one guy has the opponent in the position for a tombstone pile driver, while the other Young Buck is standing on the ring apron. So the other Young Buck springboards to the top rope and does a full flip, like landing on his feet, and while landing, basically spikes the opponent down like a spike pile driver,
Yeah.
and the other Young Buck hits the tombstone. So it's basically just a tombstone pile driver with the other chap doing a flip, but yeah, it is. I did find it funny that it's called the Meltzer Driver.
It's pretty funny. We were speaking about Brock just a moment ago. I should have probably gone to this straight away. It was reported that there has basically been an agreement reached between both parties, that being Brock and the WWE, that now that he's champion, if they do need him to come in extra, he's doing it for a slightly reduced fee, and they'll
They'll make it work.
basically. So that's good for people who are saying there's no way you can hold the belt because he won't be on TV enough. Well, he's on the belt of Mania. I think now more than ever we'll have.
We don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure, but you never know for sure. But we'll see. We'll talk about that with Raw and what John Cena was talking about, because that's a bit of a hot topic what he was talking about if you haven't heard already, using all sorts. I'm just looking at Ken here. I'm good, thank you. Is that gum? Oh, give me some gum. Yeah, we can talk about this. That's fine.
It's Tesco gum.
I
don't know
don't
if
know.
it's any good.
That's great.
There's also one Airwaves from a previous packet that's sitting in there.
Lucky,
What's the next news item? I'll talk about it. You can get your gum.
lucky dip. Yeah, I was trying to read it and I was having a really hard time of it. It looked like
Professional.
Robert has cums, but it was just my bad handwriting. Jake Roberts has cancer. Is what it really is.
Which is much worse. Jake Roberts does in fact have cancer. We don't really know much more than that. Just that he's stated that, and we wish him the best.
Wish
He's
him
out of
the
hospital
best.
now, which is good.
Yeah, he was out of hospital, released last week, and at his first public appearance, he said that was the diagnosis after everything that had happened to him. So Kenta is debuting. He was announced for this NXT Takeover pay-per-view that they promoted on Raw.
How do you think he'll get on?
He didn't look in magnificent shape in those clips.
I just think, at 49 years of age, with all those youngsters in NXT,
Ken, of course, is referencing when Steve Austin thought that Kenta signing for WWE meant Kenta Kobashi, the retired wrestler, signing. Tell me this: did Austin ever come
No.
on? That's so good.
because he normally does, doesn't he?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought I'd missed it. Kenta will get on. I don't know how he'll get on. Out of everybody they've signed, who people who follow the indies and foreign promotions really get behind, he's the one with the biggest question mark in my mind, just because of the language barrier. Who gets over without being able to cut long promos. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. When is NXT Takeover?
Thursday, I think.
This Thursday.
I think so.
Excellent. Okay, well
I
that'd be
assume
really
that's why
interesting.
they had the match on Raw.
Who do you put him against to make him look good?
Don't he's not wrestling?
Is he not?
No. I thought
What's he
you'd know.
doing?
He's just making an appearance. So I presume he'll speak, maybe.
Okay, fair enough. Let me see. We were talking last week about the people are dubbing it the New Nation. What I've written down here is so horrible, and I don't know why I did it or how I did it. Anyway, Big E and Kofi and Xavier Woods, and we were saying that this is just one of those things that will be a footnote in history. You'll remember back to that one Raw they were together, Xavier in his white suit. They're doing it at all the house shows, so it's just a bit of a work in progress, it seems.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about this. When it happens, it happens.
Thank you again. WWE in association, I can't remember the studio at the moment, but they released a new animated series on the website this week called Cheap Pops. It was up there for about a day.
It was taken down. Yeah.
Everybody thought it was brilliant, and it got taken down. Did you see it?
Yes.
What was it like?
No, sorry, I didn't see it. What am I saying? No, I didn't see it, but I believe the problem was that it was better than Slam City, and they weren't happy about that.
Wow.
That's what I read somewhere.
Because you can't have too much good stuff.
No.
Grant. CM Punk has on behalf his lawyers on behalf of CM Punk have dropped a 22-page I guess what would you call
legal
it?
letter.
A legal letter threatening lawsuit over
Punk not getting royalties.
Intellectual property use.
To be fair, you know me, I'm not a big Phil fan right now, but he's asking for money from the T-shirts and stuff that they've been selling over the past 6 months since he left, as well as for the video game that he's in that hasn't even been released yet. And I do think that's fair enough, you know. But I think that you know, there's no problem with the wrestler retiring, and if that's what he wants to do, if Punk wants to retire and walk away from the business, then you know that doesn't give WWE the right to say, well, we have all this inventory of T-shirts, so we're going to sell it. Use your likeness, use your name. You know, they're using his documentary to plug the network, and this game, he could have been removed from that game if they really wanted to.
Yeah, the video game is a big thing because now that they've got Hogan back and Warrior on side and stuff like that, and they've got to deal with Goldberg and Sting, this is pretty much they have the opportunity now with 2K15 to be the first game legitimately with every big star of the last 2 decades. This is the only one where they've got everybody on side except for Punk, and they were like, fuck that. So they just threw him in.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Did they come to a deal with Butch Reed, yeah?
The Natural. I think he might be in
Vader in these games, actually?
The downloadable content 0.8. No, Vader is in these games.
Is he not?
Would
He
you
is,
believe?
is he?
Yeah. You're loving them, aren't you?
I love Vader. I've in these 1993 pay-per-views.
Okay.
Awesome.
We're going to do Raw before we do that. I meant to ask you, is there any TNA news?
If a tree falls in the woods and there's no one around here. No, I don't think so. I mean, well, Bobby Lashley won his fight on Friday night, as did King Mo. Both men are TNA. I just found it interesting that Bobby Lashley came to the ring wearing an Impact Wrestling hat, an American Top Team T-shirt, and plain black shorts. And I mean plain black shorts. Could they not have slapped an Impact logo on him? You know what I mean?
No.
No.
They wouldn't think of these things. Monday Night Raw is War from September 8, 2014 in Baltimore, Michigan. Now, as soon as I realized it was from Baltimore, every one of my close friends who I socialize with drinking and watching wrestling, when we think of Baltimore now at this stage, one thing comes to mind. And that is the greatest moment in the history of WCW, the night after Ric Flair lost Eric Bischoff, and he did the 10-minute promo with Mean Gene in the ring in Baltimore.
Never seen it.
What? The one where he takes his clothes off
Well, I've probably seen bits.
and handcuffs himself to the ropes and says Bischoff.
Is this where he has the heart attack?
No, this is the other one.
Okay. No, I don't remember. Maybe I have seen it, but not for a long time.
It's the one where he says, I want to go to Baltimore.
No.
Okay, so hold on. The promo is he gets in the ring and Gene's like, oh, Nate. And he's just there going, huh? And he's got like all his luggage with him. And Gene says, you know, what are you going to do next? So what are you doing here, Nate? And he goes, last night he goes to Bischoff. I rang Arn. He said, come home, Rick. It's over. Go home. I rang my wife. She said, Rick, it's over. Come home. I sat on the plane. The stewardess said, Mr. Flair, what you want to do? I said, I want to go to Baltimore. And the pop is just... And the fact that basically the stewardess was asking Ric Flair where he wants the pilot to fly.
I love it. Yeah.
I thought it was really good.
I love it.
I will need to link it to you. Anyway, this was... Nothing on this show was as good as that. I never expected it to be, but I was still disappointed.
Okay.
The big news coming into the show, basically, or the promotion going into the show, is that it was going against the first Monday Night Football, obviously American football. So they were calling this the season premiere of Raw. They started with a very hot open.
Were they calling the season premiere of Raw, yeah? They didn't mention that during the show.
Do you know, so it did drop off in the third hour when they were no longer going into
that big time
football. It's just like, you fucking guns. All right, so it opened with Jericho versus Bray Wyatt to blow up their feud, their rubber match in a cage. This started off a little bit slow, but I think it got fairly good as it went on. One silly spot was Bray doing, this was about 15 minutes into the match, Bray doing his spider walk over to the cage, which, you know, as you can imagine, there was no way he could have walked over to the cage slower.
It looked so awkward as well.
It was very silly. The high spot of this match was Jericho basically had Bray out for the count. He was going up top to get out, and Harper and Rowan were down there, basically, they shall not pass.
I hate these spots because it's just like, just drop.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Do you know what else made no sense? Anytime that Jericho went for the door, Harper and Rowan just didn't go near the door.
Did they not?
Nope.
Yeah, why were Harper and Rowan there? It was very strange. Because they didn't even when the two of them are hanging out of the cage at the finish, they don't get involved. You know, whereas I think at the Cena match, the abortion that was. I mean, they were in the cage, weren't they?
Good point. So, the high spot basically was after Jericho was too intimidated to drop down, as Ken suggested he may. He climbed back up on top of the cage from the inside out and kind of gave a shrug of the shoulders and did a crossbody. Now, this
It wasn't
looked
really
like
a crossbody, he just jumped off, basically.
this looked like it absolutely sucked and that he landed really bad on his right knee. But what came out of the finish was this was actually planned. So I just think it's incredibly risky in order to play up the finish that Jericho literally doesn't land as correctly as he could.
I didn't really think it looked like he landed awkwardly.
His right knee was
his
definitely
legs.
his right knee's definitely the first thing to hit. Like when I was
Oh,
watching
maybe.
it, I was like, God, his damn knee.
I thought his feet hit first.
Okay. Either way, he had me believing for a while, that's for sure. The finish basically saw both of them on top of each other. Jericho with his
Back on the steps and
back,
Wyatt
yeah.
on top of him, kind of trading blows back and forth. This was a great finish and by far the best bit of the match. And
Did you
my
like
favourite bit of
this
Raw.
finish?
Yeah, but
it was the most
just-
realistic cage finish you'll
it was
ever
like watching
see.
Bret and Owen Hart again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was really good, wasn't it?
And eventually Wyatt just kind of punched him. There was no spot. He just punched him and kind of just rolled off him.
Yeah, people
that's
might
the
say
point.
anticlimactic, but I can appreciate it as something different, and I believe Ken can too. The finish then saw Wyatt, or after the finish, excuse me, Wyatt then slammed the cage door into Jericho's injured knee, threw him back in the cage, and gave him the Sister Abigail's kiss to go out on top
Chris.
as winner of this feud. So does Jericho go against Orton at?
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously why they did the angle later on, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, makes sense. We'll talk.
But I
about
thought that's why I had assumed for the last few weeks they were doing that, but then when I saw the post match here, I thought, oh, so they're keeping this going, are they? But it just they seem to bury Jericho. Really.
Yeah, no, I think so. We'll talk about what Ken alluded to there in just a moment. This was the best match of the three that they've had. Did you enjoy the match overall?
I thought it was a good match. Yeah.
Nice.
It
Go
didn't
ahead.
quite make the whole 3 months worthwhile.
Not at all.
I mean, it wasn't the high point of the feud. Obviously, that came on Talk is Jericho, but it was the best match of the three, and it was the only of the three matches. Most importantly, that Wyatt looked like he was coming up to Jericho's level rather than Jericho coming down to his. And Wyatt
Excellent.
looked a bit like a star.
Seth Rollins and Kane were hanging out backstage. Triple H walked up, and Seth is he reminds me so much as if me, myself, or yourself ever had the opportunity to be an athlete and a professional wrestler. He's just like somebody his age acting like such a silly heel. I always say this, but as Triple H, I don't know if you noticed, Triple H, as soon as he came up to Seth, when Seth saw him, he just did an evil heel cackle. As in, he was happy to see Triple H. He just looked at Triple H and went, amazing. So he saw Triple H.
What the fuck is going on with his T-shirt?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my god!
Not the best. They've had
So indie-rific.
the same guy probably did that Evolution abortion
Adapter
T-shirt there.
pairs.
Good God. The three of them were just there shooting the shit. Randy Orton walked in,
Hated this.
asking Hunter if he could have permission to run wild tonight in his match against Roman Reigns. And Triple H said yes. And I was kind of puzzled, thinking to myself, does this mean that it's an ODQ match? But we found out what it meant later. Yeah, a nothing segment. Dolph was
No. It was a bad segment.
a bad segment. Dolph was in the ring, and he was referencing the Fappening event which had taken place. He then said that although he
What's the
didn't,
fappening?
huh?
What's the fappening?
You're joking, aren't you?
No.
Are you reading it? No,
I don't know what fappening is.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This was the term given to the iCloud accounts that were hacked by celebrities, and all these nude pictures of celebrities were leaked.
I heard something about nude pictures of celebrities
Yeah.
being released.
So that's what it was referred to.
Are there
as-
any that I should see?
Yes.
Care to name names?
I actually didn't see them all, but I actually didn't see any really. But
Neil
from-
worried his wife's going to be listening to the
no, not
podcast
at all.
here.
But what from my my other male friends are saying, it's definitely worth looking at. You'll
Well, in
probably
case my wife is listening, I definitely won't be looking for pictures.
yeah. There's probably one place you can find them all still.
Okay.
If anybody knows it, just put
They've
it
been taken down, have they?
when we post this on,
Yeah,
on
in the comment
Facebook. If you
section.
can just post the link in the comment section and address it to Kenny.
As long as
Murphy.
they're tasteful.
Yeah, exactly.
No
Okay.
muff.
I think there wasn't too many with Muff. There might have been. I don't know. Okay, so he then said that Dolph then said that Miz was also a victim of this, and he put pictures up on the Titantron of Dolph or Miz doing various things like shaving his chest, standing there in skimpies with facial cream on and a shower cap. This is one of those things where it's just. if they had done them grittier looking, like as if they actually were hacks, but it literally just looked like professional WWE photographer snaps awkward photo of Miz. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Dolph also here was given a chance on the mic that he very seldom gets, and he overcompensates a lot and tries to add a lot of his verbiage in, it seems. He's very, he obviously has a personality and he's dying to get it across there, but I don't think this personality is one that, I think he almost talks too fast and tries to add too many little things in for the crowd to get. What did you think of Dolph?
You're talking about his wrestling now, yeah?
No, I'm not. But
Works
there you
too
go.
fast, tries too many things. This is awful.
Okay, so Miz, this brought out, anyway, when he was going to show a bigger third picture, it brought out Miz and Damien Mizdow.
Why is Mizdow doing this gimmick where he's a stunt double, but his hair and is nothing like Miz, and he's got a full beard?
Well, that was kind of Damien's thing throughout this gimmick. He maintained the hair and the beard, but everything else
Yeah, but if
was...
he's going to be stuck with Miz and they're doing a gimmick where he's his double, I think he's just shave the beard and be a tag team.
But then he'll be revealed as Ace Steel.
Who was Ace Steel?
Oh, no, he wasn't Ace Steel. He was fucking...
Something Stevens?
Idol Stevens. Idol Stevens.
That was a SmackDown team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Michelle McCool? Never saw him.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so the funniest thing about this was as Miz was berating Dolph on his way down to the ring and pointing at him and threatening him, Mizdow was doing all his mannerisms as well, and it was very, very amusing. They got up on the apron, and then Dolph just showed the clip anyway. What was the third picture?
There's a picture of him being tanned.
Oh,
naked.
that's right. That's right. There's a picture of Damien Sandow putting spray tan on a pixelated Miz bottom. They both looked in shock. Damien Sandow literally looked like he was trying legitimately not to laugh, because I guess he probably thought of something funny from when they were doing it rather than the photo itself, because it wasn't exactly a very funny photo. Dolph was celebrating. Damien Sandow came in to try and catch him from behind. Dolph got him with a really, really nice dropkick, gave him the zigzag, and then Miz went to run in and back down, basically. And this feud goes on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of it?
I just thought it was awful.
Okay. Speaking of awful, we had last week's In the Ring star, Rosa Mendez, teaming up with Natalya against AJ Lee and Paige. So much nonsense to this, I'll try and keep it brief. They're playing up a storyline that had appeared on Total Divas the night before, which was the first episode of Season 3. Storyline being that Natalya was asked, as a veteran of the Divas division, to keep an eye on Rosa on the road. So when camera comes to them in the ring, you can see Natalya telling Rosa to calm down and stuff like that. Now, the one thing that makes no sense about this is everything in Total Divas is clearly around a certain period in time. That certain period of time is quite a few months ago.
Yeah.
And it's only being acknowledged on television now. It's so insulting, pointless, and very badly thought. Speaking of which, AJ and Paige still being a tag team, and after everything that's happened, I can't even keep up. I don't know. I'm second guessing myself.
I hate this feud.
Oh, basically the story was that Rosa wouldn't really tag out. Paige was also refusing to tag out. They got the heat on Rosa. Paige got the heat on Rosa the entire time, and then AJ blind tagged Paige, came straight in, Black Widow won, and at the end of the match, AJ grabbed Paige's title and kissed it. Paige then grabbed the title back and kissed it as if to try and one-up her, and then AJ smiled and skipped away, upsetting Paige, yeah, incredible.
Brilliant storytelling here.
Backstage, Randy attacked Jericho, who was in the trainer's room. Yeah. So, did you think that this is what Randy meant in the promo, as in doing something? Because on commentary, they almost alluded to the fact that this is what he was asking for. No, I still
thought he was talking about giving the curb stomp to, what's his face? The Roman Empire.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought as well, but the commentators seem to be alluding to this. Okay, so next up we had Paul Heyman doing a warning for John Cena. It's very interesting. So basically he came out and he talked about the fact that he had a warning for John Cena. And he'd love to say to Cena's face. Cena then came out and Heyman said, you know what, me and Brock thought this might happen. So instead of giving you a warning, I'm going to give you advice. I'm going to let you know the secret to beating Brock Lesnar. And basically Heyman went in an incredible promo and a rant about all he has to do is let go. He has to ditch the hat, ditch the t-shirt, and finally give in to something he must be feeling, which is hatred, animosity, and frustration to everybody who boos him all the time. He tried to get the crowd to chant Cena sucks, and then he tried to lead Cena in telling them to shut up. Heyman was going apeshit. He was on his knees. This was like great Heyman. And then Cena got the mic. And Cena teased doing this for a while. He kind of even stepped outside the ring, was staring at a few people who were chanting it. I don't think they were getting the reactions they wanted at the points they wanted, which made it a little bit awkward. It was just before Cena was about to start his verbiage that the crowd really did pick up with Cena sucks chant, so that didn't work out very well. Regardless, Cena basically came up to Paul Heyman and said, "Shut up, Paul Heyman," and this was like your kind of big blow off for that huge bit of tension. Is John Cena going to do something heelish? That came across very phony. But what didn't come across phony was John Cena explaining why he is John Cena. He said, "I am John Cena day in, day out." He says, "You live by the mantra of eat, sleep, conquer, repeat. I live by the mantra of eat, sleep, be John Cena." He said, "This means that the hat is real, hustle, loyalty, respect is real." And then he started listing things that were actually genuine. He referenced...
And he got really emotional as well.
He did get... And I don't blame him for getting emotional, but I certainly blame the people who let this be part of a promo, because it has no place. If I had a sick child, whether they wanted to meet John Cena or not, if I had a sick child that was so terminal they were part of the Make-A-Wish program, and somebody was using it in a fake television show to get themselves any sort of sympathy or anything like that, I just found it distasteful. That was a Make-A-Wish reference that I didn't enjoy. I just think it has no place on a WWE show that has so much other spaghetti bollocks. He did then bring up the fact that a veteran had given him a Purple Heart, which they had got in battle. I think that's an okay story to tell, because that's just one point of generosity to another. It's not something as touchy as a terminally ill child. Hey, am I alone on this, or did you think it was necessary?
It didn't cross my mind. If he kind of went into more detail, maybe I would have found it offensive. As it was, I don't take offense at you taking offense, but it just isn't something that bothered me.
Okay, I wouldn't have done it personally. But yeah, so basically, Cena's rebuttal is, "I'm never turning heel." And then he said that he was giving Paul Heyman an ultimatum, because all he wants to do is fight, because he's riled up now. And that being that if Lesnar is not on the show next week for a fight, he will fight Paul Heyman. So it was obviously announced earlier that Lesnar will be on the show next week. And surprise, surprise, it's the go-home show. So of course he was going to be on the show. Sheamus against Seth Rollins. When I saw these two in the ring, I just kind of...
Whoa. I have a lot to say about that promo.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It's more... It set me on a spiral of thought. And I feel like Cena in the past 12 months, it's about a year since he's back from his neck injury. I think he's having a very similar year in terms of where his career is going and what he's done, as what we kind of discussed last week with Bret Hart in 1995 and 96. And in 1995, Bret was working with a lot of guys who were really not at his level, or kind of mid-card guys like Hakushi, Jerry Lawler, British Bulldog, Isaac Yankem, working these guys on TV or in house shows and pay-per-views, often near the top of the card, and bring them up to the highest level that they would ever reach, and to a level that they maybe really their talent really didn't allow them to get to. But he kind of would give them a rub and get them up there. Then he kind of had his championship run, which we talked about, where he was very much, he was beaten by Diesel, but Taker saved him. He was beaten by Taker, but Diesel saved him, and he was very much, he was looking bad in all these championship matches, and he was kind of putting other people over on the way. And there was this whole 6-month period where it really felt like the company is being built around Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart is just holding this championship, getting ready to hand it over. And I think if you look at the last year, you've had Cena in there with guys like, he was in there with Del Rio, he was in there with Cesaro, who got a big rub after his match. That's when his push started. He was in there with Wyatt, obviously, for the summer. All these guys who, they felt like stars at the time, and they were kind of at they kind of achieved their highest level when they were working with Cena. And then when they go to work with anyone else, it's not quite the same. And Cena really kind of made them for that period. And even now, you had him working with Brock and putting him over clean as a sheet. And then you have him coming out on these TV shows, doing decent matches, cutting good promos. And he feels like he's still the most important guy in the company, but they're trying to make it Roman Reigns. But Cena, much like Bret Hart in 1995-96, is just a good soldier who just does what the company asks of him. And I really feel like when you look back now on that time in Bret Hart's career, people look at it as when he cemented his legacy, because he was still having really good matches, and he was the company guy. And I feel like that's where Cena is right now. And I think when he's been and gone, people will look back and appreciate like what he did for Brock Lesnar last month, and how how he holds together the shows. He's really the only superstar they have. Reigns isn't connecting the way he should be. Rollins and Reigns have both lost a lot since they broke up the Shield. Ambrose isn't going to get the booking that he needs. Bryan is out. Orton is so cold. Sheamus is cold. He's the only star that they have, and I just felt like this was an awesome promo. He knocked it out of the park, and people don't realize just how important this guy is.
I definitely don't think it was an awesome promo. Like him getting emotional over real life stuff. It's like, and if anybody's allowed to come out on television and do that, they'll get emotional too. And I didn't like the content. In terms of your comparison to the year, and Bret Hart, I think he had a very similar year, 2011, 2012, to what you're describing, almost more so than this. Working on, now you mentioned Cesaro, that wasn't a pay-per-view feud. He worked with R-Truth on pay-per-view, Miz on pay-per-view multiple times, John Morrison on pay-per-view, lost to Dwayne at WrestleMania.
True.
Very similar year.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
The other argument that you could make perhaps would be like he never did anything like the job for Brock, which people will look back at and appreciate.
See,
but that plays into the idea that you were saying about Brett, which is Brett just went along and did it. I'd say Brett had a lot more resistance than Cena. I think Cena will just do anything.
What I particularly liked was we talk a lot about how fake this show is, and it was the first time in a long time I watched the promo and it was like I was invested in it, and then the first time in a long, long time. I think Heyman gets close to it, but it feels like such a work. A lot of his stuff, not through his own fault, but there just isn't that much legitimacy in it. But
what did you think of Heyman in this segment?
I thought he was okay, but he just goes over my head at the moment. He's just there cutting a promo. Especially now that he has no one. You know, they have to have him in every show, so he just comes out and cuts a promo, and he's a little bit overexposed. Yeah,
that's happening more now than it ever has before since he came back in 2012. But I think he was as good last night as he has been.
He may well have been.
The first half of it, I rated highly. Okay, Sheamus versus Seth Rollins. I really didn't like seeing these two in the ring because I thought there wasn't going to be a finish. There was a finish of sorts. Just before the ad break, our cliffhanger was Cesaro coming out to his music in a full suit, and then just kind of standing by ringside. They had a very good match towards the end, and Cesaro basically distracted Sheamus, which led to Rollins getting a kick to the back of the head and a curb stomp for the victory. Sheamus kind of didn't sell the curb stomp. He sold it late.
They were off time. Yeah.
So Cesaro came into the ring and took off his shirt, and the female reaction to this was gigantic.
Was it? Yeah.
It was more so than usual, and he gave Sheamus the neutralizer. So that they'll obviously be having a match at Night Champions. It's probably a very good match, but Sheamus right now is completely and utterly treading water until he turns heel, in my opinion.
Do you know, I was so bored by this show that I went to fast forward it, after this match through the commercial or whatever it was, and I thought that the Cena Heyman thing was the top of the second hour. And when I realized actually it was the top of the first hour, and this match had only taken me to about the 80-minute mark, I was so crushed.
You poor man.
I was so devastated. I just realized I'm gonna have to deal with some Adam Rose later on.
Yeah, he was on the show 2 weeks running. He's back. Lana and Rusev came to the stage, and basically Lana cut a promo on the fact they were in Baltimore where the Star Spangled Banner had been written. She sang it with alternative lyrics, and then she got everybody to boo while they stood there for the Russian national anthem. Did you notice during this that it went back to the announcers and Jerry Lawler said, I'm not going to stand up. In fact, I'm so angry I'm going to sit down. And then he knelt down. Did you not see this? He then knelt down with his head just sticking up past the table, looking like a petulant child. And JBL and Cole went on to have a conversation, and Jerry Lawler's just there with just his head sticking over the announcers. It was fucking hilarious. So basically,
can I say something? That's something I find. Because I listen, we listen to our reviews. There's about 500 podcasts that review the show, and I often find there's things that I've missed, and it's just because the show is so fucking long I can't pay attention.
You see, I watch it live, so I can't miss anything.
It's not even that I'm fast forwarding.
Oh,
it's
really?
It's just that I'm watching it. I'm just so bored.
Ken, as a man who has a very similar sense of nonsensical humour as I do, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't pop for seeing Jerry Lawler's head sticking over.
I was still dealing with the depression of knowing I had 90 minutes of the show left plus the overrun.
So they were talking about NXT TakeOver like myself and Ken were earlier, and then they said that they were going to basically have a showcase match for it. The four men who were in the main event would be squaring off in a tag match. I got so excited. So it was Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville, and Tyler Breeze making their debuts. on Monday Night Raw, along with Tyson Kidd. So Tyson Kidd and Tyler were the heel team. Adrian Neville and Sammy were the babyface team. Sammy was getting some Olay chants at the start, which was great, harkening back to his days as El Generico. He seemed to be enjoying himself. The fact that it was his Raw debut, I thought was just brilliant. He really is the kind of guy who should be on Raw every week, you know what I mean? He deserves to be called up. JBL was saying that this is the reboot of Tyson Kidd's career, so he's essentially calling a spade, saying that Tyson Kidd was going to be using NXT to kind of relaunch his career in the WWE, and by winning the NXT Heavyweight Championship at TakeOver, that would be one way of solidifying himself. So the match was pretty much get the heat on Sami Zayn. That's what Tyson Kidd and Tyler Breeze were doing, until he got the hot tag to Neville. This was Neville's first time in the match, and he basically was doing his comeback. It was just incredible. He was so quick, so fast. The crowd legitimately seemed in awe, and you'd be very hard-pressed to find the last time, just through moves, especially a guy who's not like a really big guy. Like we all think of maybe Brock Lesnar running through the crowd and giving the F5 to Spike Dudley for the first time, or various other feats of strength, maybe the way that Cesaro got over when he was in The Real Americans. But it's been a very, very long time since somebody has gotten so over with a crowd just because of their moves on their Raw debut. And this was an example of that. He did a standing shooting star press. He did extremely fast kicks. He was absolutely lightning in the ring. People were going crazy for him. And when they saw his finish, it was literally one of the biggest pops you've seen for a finish out of a guy that nobody knew before he entered the ring.
Wait until they hear him speak.
Yeah, well, look, listen, maybe they can be clever about that and just put him with somebody. But either way, great to see Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville up on the show. And just a really, really solid debut.
Can I make a prediction?
Mm-hmm.
He's defending the title on Thursday night. I think he loses it and comes up.
You think he's up before Zayn?
I think he's coming up, yeah.
Do you think he was coming up before Monday, but after the pop he got
No,
on
I
Raw?
think that's why they presented him that way. I think that was the plan.
Cool. Sounds good. That's awesome. You know
I
what?
can
That's
see
fucking that's
Breeze
great.
taking the title and feuding with Kenta, and then we'll go from there.
I just can't wait to... Will it be the first time that a Geordie's ever been on WWE television?
Well, I mean, Vince McMahon almost bought Newcastle United, so...
That's why he likes them.
Yeah.
Do I have to talk about this? They've been building this up the whole show. Jerry Springer was the guest for a family reconciliation between the Bellas. Stephanie came out and introduced him. He came out first and said that he couldn't turn down the offer to come on Raw and do the segment. I bet he wish he did. He said Brie was to come out first. She came out with new music, and she basically said that it's all Nikki. Nikki was the one who said that she died in the womb, blah, blah, blah. So, or she should have died in the womb. She obviously didn't die in the womb. So, Jerry then brought Nikki Bella out. Nikki came out, and this was very, very interesting. They started showing clips from Total Divas that all really played up to Nikki's favour.
Brie does come off like a bitch on that show.
Well,
I didn't see this week's episode.
in these particular clips, she didn't come off well, but she comes off as a lot more likeable and intelligent person on the show. But she did come off mean in these clips. There's just no denying it.
Come across well, yeah.
All right. You just don't like hippy dippy chicks.
I don't just like hippy dippy chicks, but her sister just better egg.
Is she better egg?
She's a better egg, yeah. I decided there. Look, she bites Cena, and her sister's stuck with Brian. You know what I mean? What does that say?
The only reason Cena's doing that stuff is because I'd say she's very easy to just kind of go on. There's not much going on there, you know what I mean, in between the ears.
These are great.
Really?
There's plenty going on in between the shoulders. That's the main thing.
Well, yeah. Well, as of the last few years, at least. So, they went back and forth, and as I said, it was very strange to make the babyface look so bad. This whole segment was shit. The dialogue was shit. Jerry Springer was shit and old. And then
70? I didn't know that.
I know, man. It makes sense when you think about it, but neither did I know. Then they brought up, Nikki brought up, maybe the reason that Dad left us, which you'd only know if you watched Total Divas, was because of you. If I had a daughter
so then they had the brother come out, JJ.
No, Ken. They had the dad on the Tron.
They had the videos of the mom and the dad asking them to stop.
And this was stiff as stale bread.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
These guys were reading off an auto cue, and it was horrific.
And they had them both by their real names, which are Garcia and Kolat. And then they had their brother come out, introduce JJ Bella with the graphic reading JJ Garcia, and oh my god, they try to do the thing where you swerve him. So he goes, "You're the victim. You're not the victim," and he's trying to say it to Brie.
Yeah.
So we're thinking he's taking Nikki's side, but then he's actually saying it to Nikki, and it's fucking dreadful television. They get into a brawl. Poor Jerry takes a bump and gets kind of rolled over.
They were having a hard time rolling over him. Then Stephanie came to intervene, and then she really fakely and horribly fell over, and then also tried to roll on Jerry, and she failed at that. This looks so hokey and phony. It was like one of those things. If anybody who doesn't usually have WWE on their radar, for whatever reason, got WWE on their radar because Jerry was doing it, and they wanted to make a bad lie in WWE, they did everything they could in this segment to make it easy for those people.
Absolutely.
So Jerry left in after they basically got broken up. Jerry left in a stretcher, and he was obviously told beforehand by Vince in only Vince's way, "Now you got to do this big thumbs up, Jerry." And Jerry just did the most unnatural, constant thumbing up.
I found it interesting that I heard a couple of people online who thought this was a shoot and that he was actually hurt.
The Observer thought it was a shoot.
Yeah, I was like, what?
I've never in my life been so disappointed I paid them money.
Embarrassed, like.
That is embarrassing, isn't it?
It's the second most embarrassing moment in Observer history since the Ted DiBiase contract angle in 2008. Remember that?
Oh. Surely Punk is definitely going to be on Raw in Chicago is the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we had Goldust and Stardust, or Gold and Stardust, defeating Los Matadores. There was something I wanted to say about this match, but I can't quite remember. They showed a tribute to Joan Rivers. She was obviously, she had Hogan on her show, and she was part of WrestleMania 2. So they had a lot of nice photos, and they did a really nice tribute for her.
They did for like Umaga, who was under contract a year before he died.
So this was very tasteful until you start thinking back. And as Ken just mentioned, plenty of people who were employed long-term. You can keep going, Ken.
There's a lot of guys who worked there, didn't get mentioned when they died, but let's just move along.
Yeah, but Joan Rivers, because, it's just to be a part of something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just to be part of the press,
Adam Rose defeated Titus O'Neil in a rematch from last week. Now they're really starting to put over the bunny. They did more stuff with him and Slater on the outside, and then had him get one up on Titus as well. Adam Rose obviously won. So what's happening?
People are talking about the bunny unmasking, which is probable, but it wouldn't stun me if they just made him a team. Who knows? Who cares?
And the guy wrestles in the bunny suit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you can either have a prelim guy come out from under the mask, which, what's it going to be, Justin Gabriel? Because you don't want to give this role to anyone important. The only person I thought of was maybe Fandango, turn babyface.
They'd be a great team, actually.
That would work. It
would work. Mark Henry and Rusev was announced for a arm wrestling match on SmackDown. The main event was Roman Reigns against Randy Orton. They had a pretty back and forth match. I wasn't as big on their SummerSlam match as other people were. How did you find it?
This match?
Yeah.
2 stars.
Basically, it was all built around an angle. So
I just knew I wasn't getting a finish. It was like,
okay, yeah, it just inexplicably out of nowhere. It wasn't even like Randy was like that much on the ropes.
The Authority runs out with a bunch of people. They bring down the cage. Seth Rollins almost gets impaled by the cage as it's coming down.
Yeah, that's weird. If Spike's on the cage now to set them in.
Yeah.
And Seth was handing a chair in as the cage was coming down. Basically, they were trying to trap Roman in the cage, but he got Seth and Kane out of there before the cage came
Why are they
down.
trapping in the cage? I don't understand. He doesn't have any friends anyway.
I know.
So basically, they beat him up, and Rollins gives Reigns the curb stomp on a chair, and we go off the air.
Yeah, so they're switching, like myself and Ken predicted last week, they're switching from Randy and Reigns over to Rollins and Reigns and going with Randy and Jericho. So, Night of Champions, we pretty much almost have our full card as it stands, and it's looking desperately like a one-match show. But maybe that's all they need. Okay, podcasts. We're going to start off with, I presume, what we're going to give our podcast of the week to, and that being Jericho's two-parter with Hunter.
Yeah, good stuff.
Really good stuff. Even though Hunter hasn't done that many shooty interviews, he's obviously never done a shoot interview per se, and he doesn't do many radio shows.
You sure he's never sat down with Rob Feinstein, no?
I'm positive.
Okay.
Of all the people, him and Vince. But yeah, so Trips isn't one, and he's never had a book out. Obviously, he had the Making the Game book. He's never had a biography out. But
yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, surprisingly enough. the first part of this interview, part one, as entertaining as it was, there wasn't much I didn't know about him. I guess quite a bit was covered in
There was the thing
Stevie
about
T.
how when he wanted to leave WCW, they kept him for 4 months, even though he was out of contract. They kind of held him up in court. Remember that?
Baffling.
Yeah, because he was out of contract. I just found it interesting. They were talking about the competitiveness between them all in the late 90s, early 2000s. Because I'm sure they didn't like each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Rock and Austin really, really... Like, Austin was... had a reputation of being very paranoid anyway when he got the belt. Yeah. But when Rock started coming up, especially when Austin knew he had to go for neck surgery, supposedly there was like... They just would not talk to each other. Austin was out of his mind. And
Austin and Hunter never seemed to get on. I mean, Austin wouldn't drop the belt to him in SummerSlam, would he?
Yeah, and Hunter understood. I think Hunter knew deep down inside that the only way he was going to get where he wanted to get was probably without an Austin, which is really weird because he fancied himself as a heel. But yeah,
I did like the way he said. I'd heard him many times mention how he wanted to break up DX and be a single. But this was the first time I heard that his logic was, well, Austin and Rock are going to be number 1 and 2 on the face side, so they need a top heel. I mean, Hunter in the year 2000 made that company. No, there's no two ways about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's when you look back at that quad injury, people say, "Oh, what would have happened if he was in, the Invasion?" That's not my question. My question is, how fucking awesome could he have been if he didn't get that injury? Because he was never the same in the ring.
No, he was
after.
never quite as good. I mean, do you remember he just came back and he was just like the most ludicrously steroided up man of all
he
time.
was gigantic for about a year straight, up until WrestleMania 03.
Then he started getting porky.
Then he started getting a bit porky. Another great story that he did tell in the second part was that when he started moving over to the corporate side slightly more, that Vince would always make a comment. Vince was, by the way, tricked him into basically being the heir to the company. He would invite him to production meetings and meetings with sponsors and investors and stuff that Hunter had no idea about, just so he could sit there and soak it all in. And it was Vince never came to him formally about it, but this is basically how Vince, in a roundabout way, told Hunter that you're my next guy. You're the guy I'm grooming. However, he did joke with Hunter a lot about his hair and saying we can get this problem fixed in a hair versus hair match. So when Hunter inevitably did decide to go fully corporate and get the hair cut, he presented his ponytail in a glass case to Vince, and now Vince has it in his office.
Why didn't he lose that to Brock in a match or something? Oh, well, maybe Brock would have been the wrong guy to do a hair match, but they could have at least done an angle where Brock shaved it off or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was such a trademark for him.
You're right. Piper. Here's another one from Piper.
Awesome.
Sorry, anything more from the Triple H interview you enjoyed?
There was something that was on the top of my tongue and it's gone now. Oh, no, it is gone.
All right, okay. If it comes back to you, I actually had something else as well. So I'll just talk about this shite. Piper obviously had the issue with Samoan Joe. Now, for some reason, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe in Texas he was called this, but he has Kamala on, and the advertisement is King Kamala.
Never heard that.
Okay. Austin had Rick Drayson on.
Yeah.
Who? No, but seriously though, I was going to ask you.
I have no idea who he is.
Neither of us do.
No.
We failed the listeners for the first time.
Yeah, no idea.
Oh, there was a guy I was listening to last week. Goldberg got DDP on. Now, I've heard DDP shill and plug his yoga more than anybody else on these fucking podcasts, these horribly, horribly incestuous podcasts. Yeah. But maybe even Goldberg could be interesting because there might be some WCW stories that we haven't heard before, but I've yet to get to that. Jim Ross had Stan Hansen on.
Can I interrupt for a sec?
Of course you can.
Rick Drayson, born July 12th, 1944, is an American artist, actor, internet talk show host, director, producer and writer. He's also a personal trainer, stuntman, former bodybuilder and retired pro wrestler. So I'm guessing Steve would know him through
the movies more so.
Yeah.
Cool. Jay had Stan Hansen on. Did I ever tell you my Stan Hansen story? Did I ever tell you my Stan Hansen story?
No.
Okay. So at WrestleMania 20, I can't remember.
Won the rest.
25. 25. He was
the 24th anniversary of WrestleMania.
That's the one. Booker T had basically what became WrestleCon, but this was all for charity, and basically all the same names eventually started doing WrestleCon a few years later. So there was lots of meet and greets, and you had the tables and colostomy bags everywhere, and just everybody just doing their thing. So Sean knew that I was going to be meeting
Sweet Sean Ryan.
Sweet Sean Ryan knew that I was going to be nailing towards Stan Hansen, so he said to me, will you get a picture of Stan Hansen giving you the lariat? And I was like, absolutely. So I went up to the table. He had his gimmicks there, paid my $20 down, sat beside him. And I would like to think I did it more eloquently than most fans who got denied it. But I said, Stan, My friend at home in Ireland, Sean, has given me one job to do while I'm over meeting some of our idols, and that is if you can hold out your legendary lariat in front of my neck for this photograph, word for word. Really, I think that's a pretty nice way to ask. No, I don't do that. I am not.
Simple.
I am not in that picture.
What's the picture like that? He's just
It's me sulking and looking at my 20 bills in his fanny pack.
So he's kind of a dick, was he?
I think that is disgraceful.
Yeah.
I'm fine, especially if you're old school wrestler. If you don't want to fucking let some geek put you in a headlock, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to stick your arm out, which was your finisher.
I think his logic would be more like, because he's from the day when the business was protected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know, it's stupid, but you could see that in him when he was talking about how there's somebody using the Hansen name in wrestling, and he's not related to him, and he's not happy about it.
Sorry, we haven't got to that yet. So, did you listen to you obviously listened to this interview?
I actually did, yeah.
You poor, it was no
It was
good.
mostly about football. American.
Honestly,
No, you know the way he always talks about football with people anyway? There's a lot of that on this one.
all right. Anything from the Law or MLW this week? I know Cole Cabana is still doing his Edinburgh stuff, so there's nothing new there.
No.
Okay, grand. And anything interesting from the Observer? I don't think they had any big guests.
No, nothing. We can get into our classic review.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our classic review this week is Halloween Havoc 93. It took place. Do you have the date and whatnot there?
Okay, so Halloween Havoc 1993, October 29th, 1993, and I haven't written down where was it. Was it Baltimore?
Was it in Baltimore?
I can't remember.
I've got it here. Excuse me.
Okay, so we had like a movie style opening. Neil, I've taken minimal notes. Yeah.
It was in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah,
and
it was.
that is why we got this very, 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 very 90s chant that happened all night long.
Okay, we'll come to that. So I'll just read what I've written. You'll probably have a lot to say about this intro, but let me just get through what I have here. So we have like this movie style open. So we have these kids on Halloween visiting a big scary looking house, okay? So they ring the door and it's Tony Schiavone. I've just written serious pedophile here.
He's dressed as kind of as a pseudo vampire. He's got a pale face going with a cape.
Yeah.
That's it.
He is wearing clothing, Neil, not just the cape. He's not Ric Flair. Okay, eventually, there's kind of a lot of back and forth between him and the kids, and eventually he pulls off his face, which is a mask, to reveal some sort of monster gimmick.
Yeah,
And,
he does allude to the fact that he is cooking his wife. And he has some very funny lines like, no, she is cooking cookies. Would you guys... And then, like, you know, he's just totally funny acting, ladies and gentlemen, in 93. Would you like to go in and taste my wife? Cookies. Tremendous dialogue.
So we kind of we zoom in on the lights and then zoom out, and we're looking at the spin the wheel for the spin the wheel make the deal. We cut to ringside, and Tony is at ringside again, dressed up, and now he looks like Jesse Ventura, which I find very amusing. Jesse is dressed like a doctor with like a creepy mask on, and he takes off the mask and makes a joke about being a gynecologist.
He says he is Bourbon Street, which of those of you who maybe graced WrestleMania this year is the biggest, craziest tourism street. So he makes a joke about being Bourbon Street's top gynecologist, which basically means that he sees all sorts.
All sorts, yeah, vag. Right.
Can I talk about the set?
Oh yeah. I was gonna come to that later. Go on.
Cool. No, I'll wait for you.
Great set.
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
absolutely
just talk about it. It's like it's the classic WCW Halloween Havoc set they used for years, where
it's all spread out though. It's very condensed, and they've got the wheel in the middle with a knife to represent where the wheel stops.
They have a big pumpkin.
They have big pumpkin and stuff. They've got tombstones like of lots of famous people, but other things written under them. Like for instance, they've got one that says Elvis, but then spray painted in pink under it says lives. And it's just the fact like you're seeing like later on in the show Jack and Vader bleeding everywhere, and in the background Elvis lives in graffiti. Yeah. It was. I really enjoyed the set. WCW always had an element of.
They had good sets, by the way.
They did. They had like everyone talks about WWF being cartoony and stuff, and it was. But WCW had that kind of like classy family feel sometimes, like going to a theme park or something.
Yeah, I totally go.
And they have that. Obviously, you know, they're backed by a station, so they have those resources.
Yeah.
None more so evident in the mini movies we've been talking about,
yeah.
And of course the intro to this,
which they were doing. Okay, so the opening match is Kane and Cole, otherwise known as Booker T and Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat, and the Equalizer, who is the artist futurely known as Evad Sullivan, Dave Sullivan, Kevin Sullivan's gimmick brother.
He looked a lot shorter here.
Look shorter here?
Oh, because he wasn't with Kevin Sullivan. That would be why.
Oh, I get you. Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. These three are teaming up against the Shockmaster.
Can I say so? I'm so sorry. I just want to say something about this entrance here. As the equalizer was coming off, he kept saying into the camera, "I'm going to rip their faces off. I'm going to rip their faces off." This was just after we had Jesse Ventura ripping his mask off, and
Tony.
just after we had Tony doing it in the promo. So just ripping faces off left, right, and centre.
Left, right, and
Very
centre.
spooky feel.
Okay, their opponents are the Shockmaster, who, after his debut, I had thought he'd worked for like a couple of weeks with the mask, but he never did. Yeah, I thought
Really?
Yeah, or at
They
least had
went
an entrance.
straight to vignettes of him being a disaster
Did
and
they,
talking about the botch.
Okay.
It was actually pretty clever.
I would like to see some of those vignettes.
And then he
Are they
became...
in line, the vignettes?
I presume so.
Okay.
And then he became a builder-looking
Yeah, he looks
guy.
like a builder here, as he did. I've watched Fall Brawl '93, which is the
War
previous
Games.
type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, so it's him, Ice Train, and Charlie Norris, who was like a WCW version of Tatanka. And I looked him up to see like what his deal was. This is who he always was. He was like a Native American. His name was Charlie Norris, which I thought was some sort of play on Chuck Norris. And this is just his gimmick. And I was just like, this is such a ragtag bunch here. The Shockmaster, the Ice Train, Charlie Norris.
This ragtag's perfect. It's an absolute clusterfuck of baby faces. Now, let me ask you something about Ice Train.
Okay.
Was he actually in WCW from 93 till 97?
Yeah,
Because do you
he was there
remember
for a
he was in that tag?
good run.
He was in the tag team with Scott
Scott
Norton.
yeah.
And
Fire and Ice.
they were actually good together. Like, they had a great dynamic. They were very much the replacement of the Steiners while they were gone.
Yeah,
they just
that's
throw...
downgrading now.
Okay, fair enough. Like, but they would throw each other around the place. I never for the life of me knew that Ice Train was in this early.
Okay, so they got the heat on Norris, and eventually the babyfaces made a comeback. Shockmaster won. I haven't noted down. I called it a bear hug slam. He has a bear hug, drops to his knees, and just falls over on Booker / Kane for the pin. Notable was that in the Fall Brawl War Games match, I don't know if you know this, Neil, the Shockmaster actually won the match beyond.
Yeah, the
And he
match
won it
beyond, yes.
with the bear hug on Booker T. Just submits to a bear hug like a minute into the match beyond. It was like, what?
Anything else about this match?
No, you.
Booker looked so green. The story of how Harlem Heat got into wrestling was that basically he just kind of tagged along with Stevie Ray, or I believe he sent a tape on Stevie Ray's behalf and said that he was involved. And Booker was so green here. Another thing was Tony Schiavone, as soon as Shockmaster got in the ring, spoke about how you'd never find a more agile big man who works so fast. And Jesse just could not accept that Tony had said this about. Of all
Jesse
the
was
people,
so argumentative all night.
Jesse was pretty bad. He didn't get Schiavone to tell him to shut up like he did the last show. Jesse was very much argumentative.
Bischoff interviews Terry Taylor about being the referee, the second referee rather, in the Rude Flair match. Taylor says he's done bad in the past, but tonight he's going to call it right down the middle. This was meant to be Terry Taylor's babyface turn, but it never really took.
That's interesting that it's meant to be his babyface turn, considering the first thing he does in the main event is a heelish thing. Well, the only thing I take from this is Bischoff was dressed like a kind of like a Civil War-esque leader, and Terry Taylor's voice has completely changed.
Has it, yeah?
He was very southern here, and now when he speaks on WWE documentaries and stuff like that,
He
he's
probably
got
knows he wants to keep a job.
Very good, Ken.
Okay, so Orndorff comes out with the assassin, the masked assassin, Jody Hamilton. I have lots to say here.
He had this was like his first WCW appearances. He was was he still active?
It was never even explained. I read the Observer from the time, and Dave had no explanation why he was here.
No, Orndorff wasn't originally supposed to be going against Steamboat.
No, he was a replacement. And
so how did Orndorff end up with the
I don't know. I will tell you why. I will come to it a bit later on.
Okay, Jesse could not believe how fat the assassin was.
Yes, it was terrific. Okay, just one thing about Jesse is that I watched the Clash of the Champions at the Shockmaster incident in the last week, and as they come back for the next match, Jesse goes, "What an entrance for the Shockmaster!" And then Steamboat does a great entrance, with this fire, and he goes, "We're seeing a lot of great entrances tonight." Eh? He starts laughing. So, but yeah, he keeps making gags about the great shape the assassin is in. He's just so clear he doesn't give a shit here. It's great.
He clearly knew the assassin was more around Jesse's time, so he probably knew him well enough to to know a time when he was in shape. I presume the assassin wasn't active at this point.
No, he wasn't.
Okay,
I'll come to. I've got more on him.
I was just so fascinated. So, can I ask you about Jesse?
Yeah.
Okay, I usually get a bit of slack for this. Maybe it's because I kind of grew up on these WrestleManias, like renting them, and the first wrestling show I ever saw was 6. But my favorite heel commentator, and I really, really fucking rate Heyman, and I really rate 96, 97 Lawler, and 98 Lawler. Like, trust me, I do. And I like comedy as much as the next guy, so Bobby Heenan and Gorilla is like good. Mm-hmm. There's something about Jesse on those early WWF pay-per-views.
Yeah.
That
he's a great voice for commentary.
I just think he got it, and the way he would argue the heel's case.
Yeah,
you could tell he's super clever. Mm-hmm. Like Heyman does it in that kind of like schmaltzy Jew way, where he wants to just be sleazy and hateful. Mm-hmm. Jesse kind of is as close to going into business for himself as you could be, but he's not, because he's talking about somebody else. Mm-hmm. He's talking just about the heel. Mm-hmm. How would you rate, now that we've watched a few 93 stuff, everyone said he just didn't give a shit. What do you think of Jesse in WCW?
People say he didn't give a shit. I've watched, like we've discussed this, I've watched every single show he did, because he didn't do the weekly shows at that point, right? So I've watched all the clashes and pay-per-views, and the curve, I mean, he just very, very quickly started, he first maybe 3 months, he's WWF Jesse, and then he very steeply becomes this kind of, out for himself. But I still thought he was good here.
Yeah.
I think, in terms of heel commentaries, I think he's maybe the best heel commentator. However, because of the chemistry they had, the run of Heyman and Ross in 2001 was my favorite.
That's very, very fair.
The actual hatred they had. Well, but on the air they got
each other. Yeah, they could get up each other's dander so much. But that's very interesting about Jesse. And I like JBL now. It's getting fewer.
Now he's awful.
Fewer and far between where he makes me laugh. Yeah. But like Jesse, and it's not because it's retrospective or it's like, oh, I know what Jesse meant, but nobody else did at the time. It's not that shit. Jesse literally makes me shit myself when I watch these shows.
He's a good man.
Still.
So Steamer at this point was a lot like Jericho in the past decade, where he'd be working on top at one point in the year, and 6 months later be buried at the bottom of the card. But wherever you put him, he'd be reliable, he'd be over, and he'd give you a good match. Okay. Jody Hamilton, the assassin. Do you know who his son is, Neil?
No.
The man in the middle, Nick Patrick. And that is where this run came from. And Nick Patrick is the referee for this particular match. So, did a good match. Steamboat is on top most of the time. There's mild Paula chants from the crowd, which was the kind of the thing they tried to get on him as a heel, which is kind of like when Morrison was trying to get Mr. Ziggles over for Ziggler. I thought it was kind of stupid.
Okay, all right.
So, Jesse was seriously winding Tony up here, but Tony's kind of, I think Tony's had like practice, maybe meditated before the show, because he's not getting as wound up as he has in previous shows. I thought Steamboat was terrific at selling here.
So good.
There's an awful spot where Orndorff rolls him up and holds onto the top rope, and he's got him like face down, but he's holding on to the top rope, which is actually pulling him off Steamboat, and it's just one of those weird spots that you still see these days. The ref does the old kick the arm off the rope spot, yeah. And Steamboat tries to cover, but their timing is all off. It's just a real botch. Steamboat has the win after a top rope high cross, but the assassin gets his son's attention, presumably talking about what mum is making for tea or something. Orndorff throws Steamer over the top rope. Assassin puts a gimmick in the mask, and the mask which didn't fit at all. Like,
oh no, he was falling out of that mask.
And headbutts Steamer in the back, who gets counted out. Jesse says there's no way he could have fit the gimmick in the hood with his fat head. I've written here, I hated Assassin, and he was even worse than Race. It was a good match though. I think it would have been like 3.5 stars if it wasn't for the finish. But go on.
Yeah, so just my notes on that. First off, you need to stop giving out about Harley Race as a manager.
Oh, there's more to come.
Okay. Secondly, I wish there's
entire bog.
That is my whole entire bog. Look, there's there's a wrestling podcast we listen to, Ken, and they said something recently, and I wished to God they hadn't, because I knew this was going to come up eventually with these WCW reviews. This has been my opinion since fucking 1997 when I bought like Sold Out that year on VHS and Easons.
Okay. Oh, Nick Patrick.
He's the worst.
He's not great.
The worst referee in the world. I don't know how he's WCW head ref. Maybe his dad's the assassin.
Yeah.
He's fallen on hard times. He can't stop eating. But it was... Yeah, I just can't hack Nick. There's a point in this match where Steamboat was getting booed by a section of the crowd, and I found that very interesting.
You sure they weren't saying boo earns?
I'm pretty sure it was like, the kind of Shawn Michaels heat that some of the male gets. Yeah, that finish made no sense. Like, how do you put something on your forehead under a piece of cloth, hit somebody in the back of the head who gets knocked out?
Like,
but
how much harder is it going to be than your skull?
And how are you fine if they're like, none of it makes sense?
No. Right. Schiavone explains that the WCW International Board of Directors recognizes Rick Rude's belt as a world title, so WCW must recognize it also. I just was like, what?
Yeah, this is when they had the other belt on the go as well, was it?
Yeah, but look, I've got more on this later on. And he finishes by saying that they must now recognize that title as a world title, which they have been doing all along, as have the fans. That's what he says. He says, we must now recognize that title as a world title, which we have been doing all along, as have the fans. I was like, so what are you telling me this for? The reason is because, I'll come to this later on, but WCW rescinded the recognition of this title as a world title, and then about a month later gave it back. I don't know why.
They were trying to bring an NWA title back, I think.
Yeah, but then they changed their mind, kind of thing.
Yep, they did.
Okay, out came Davey. I've noticed he's not really that over, which, considering the push he had that year, I don't know. Bruce Buffer says Bulldog is one of the most dangerous fighters in the world.
Yeah, Bruce Buffer was all over the show. Every title match.
I looked it up, and he actually was going to enter UFC 1 a couple of weeks after this. But Hoist Gracie was breaking it, so that's why he pulled out. He was one of the most dangerous fighters in the world.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Buffer, and I was like, Buffer. Tell me this.
How do you feel about the TV title, Neil?
I love the TV title.
Do you?
Yeah. How about you?
I
think it might be a nonsense for me, as in my reasoning might be nonsense, because as a WWF fan growing up and being exposed that far more than WCW, it always seems so exotic to me. It's like, that's the title that I don't get to see. The TV title, Yeah. What is this? So, yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. Ken, you haven't actually mentioned what this match is, and this is a fascinating match.
Yeah, let me. I'll get to it. I've got it.
Okay, I just thought you were just talking about Davey coming out.
No, okay, Regal. Regal locks up. So it's William Regal, or Stephen Regal rather than it's Davey Boy Smith. Do you want to talk about Regal there?
No, I just thought that I found out this match had happened only recently, and I've never watched the full thing through. So I was really excited because, you think about these guys not really being around the same time, even though they were. So it's just a fascinating matchup. You've got the one Brit who's completely Americanized in terms of his tan, his build, against the other Brit. It's not very Americanized, but I'll let you talk about it and I'll talk about it at the end.
There's a good spot early on where they lock up and Regal complains about the grease all over Davey, which I felt was fair. Tony on commentary says, since arriving at WCW, Davey has been quite a popular athlete, which I thought was just, what a way to put him over. I've written here, Davey's dreads don't get enough heat. I mean, he's not Dotsy here. I don't know what he's trying with this look.
Dotsy. I actually always loved his dreads.
Yeah, he could get away with them, not Davey. Like, why did think about the character. Why was Davey Boy Smith wear dreadlocks?
I liked them. I liked the way they had the little Union Jack colours on the end of each strand as well. Although a few of them were missing, he looked like he'd gone to the dogs, to be honest.
I've written here,
he'd been wearing this outfit since Wembley. Literally, over a year before.
I'm trying to be professional here. My wife just sent me a text message saying my daughter is dreadfully ill. Let's try and plow on here. Right. Davey throws a head scissors from the mat on Regal, which isn't even close, and Regal takes the bump anyway. This is okay. So the finish here was messed up. Okay, Davey hits his power slam and Regal kicks out, which is very weird. Davey then pile drives Regal and gets a 2 count before the time expires. Okay, what happened was, they were getting time cues from ringside, and the power slam was actually supposed to be the finish.
Yeah.
But they were told they were 10 seconds left when there was actually 20. So they had to improvise. Anything else you want to say about that match?
I fucking love the first top 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's the closest thing you'll ever see in 90s American wrestling to world sport. It's just gorgeous. Davey, we all know he can do that running kind of bounce off his hands into a perfect front flip standing, but you've never seen Davey move the way he moved when him and Regal are doing the opening exchanges. It's the perfect sultry heel when it comes to Regal. He's getting more and more annoyed that Davey's matching him, while the commentators are commenting on they thought it'd be a powerhouse against a technical wrestler, but Davey remembered all his World of Sport stuff. They do this constant arm wringer, hammerlock, Regal gets a snapmare, and they wash, rinse, repeat this about 4 times in a row. And I just especially knowing how
Tackle, drop down, headlock, hip toss.
Grab it again. No, but knowing how mad for the drugs, for lack of a better term, both these guys were, this is the shit that can really blow you up, especially at the start of a match. And they just, their condition...
Yeah, they did do very good wrestling at the start.
It was, you know what, man? It was the best I've seen in so many years.
We haven't been doing star ratings here,
pining for it. I give this match 3 stars.
Okay, what did I give this match? I went with 2. I'll give you the Meltzer.
I loved it. I really loved the first few minutes.
Just so you know, Dave went 3.5 for the opener. No, a star for the opener, the 6th man. 3.5 for the Steamboat Orndorff match, and 2 3/4 for Regal and.
Okay,
right.
It's weird. Orndorff seems to have good matches on pay-per-view.
He does. Yeah,
nothing better, nothing worse, but good.
Austin versus Rhodes. They pan to a fan as Rhodes is going to the ring, who's got an 8x10 of Dustin Rhodes and shouts, "Dustin!" which I thought was very music altogether. Buffer announces Austin as a former 2-time television heavyweight champion. I was just like, television heavyweight champion. I was just picturing this giant TV. Okay.
A lot of the verbiage written for Pincer and Buffer on this show was dreadful, grammatically, and just made no sense. A lot of this stuff, When
I watch Austin back then, I can totally understand why McMahon and Bischoff didn't see anything special in him. I think his work is good, but he doesn't have any giant charisma. He's really, his haircut isn't great, his look's not great, and I can see why people weren't like, oh yeah, here's a guy who could be a huge star. It just wasn't there yet.
I'm not gonna say the exact opposite, but
I would see more impalement at the time.
I get what you mean when it comes to charisma, especially when you look at like the 6 guys in the last 3 matches, but on WCW side anyway. But one thing I noticed about Austin watching this stuff is you can tell he's a super fucking smart guy. There's always little things that he does or little spots in his matches that you never see in anybody else's matches that kind of almost blur the heel and face dynamic now and again until it's reaffirmed that Steve is definitely the heel. Do you know what I mean? He gets the face to do something and then he'll do something worse. And it's very interesting. And I just feel, I heard one of the podcasts was talking about something he had to convince Steamboat to do in one of their matches that made Steamboat a little bit of a heel for just a moment, but it was just to make Austin even a bigger one a few minutes later. And there's these little nuances that Austin does that I think shows how, especially pre-neck injury, he was a very, very clever and slightly innovative kind of wrestler, in my opinion.
I liked, just a small thing, but the commentary, because I miss wrestling commentary. Schiavone explains, Austin has primarily been a tag wrestler in the last year, but during his 18-month run as TV champion, his finish was the stun gun, which works on the upper body, which Austin was doing there. And I just thought, what a way to call the match. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Austin hits like a half spine buster and pins Rhodes with his feet in the ropes. The ref counts 3, but then restarts the match anyway, as though he hasn't counted 3. Rhodes rolls up Steve for the 3. Austin immediately hits Rhodes with the belt and walks out. The pinfall looked really weak, and Austin, actually, if you watch it, kicked out before 3. I only gave this match 2 stars. I would have gone 3, but that finish was just messy.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have a rating for that match.
Okay. Meltzer went 2 3/4. We see footage from WCW Saturday Night with Bagwell and Scorpio winning the tag titles. They, I noted, were wearing Bahama Boy yellow and purple.
They were again.
This was a very strange team, I have to say. No matter how much I see them, I never get used to it.
Yeah.
Jesse insults Tony's gimmick that he's wearing, and Tony does his best Jesse impression. and I thought this was fantastic.
It was very good. And not only that, but it was at this point in the night that Tony Schiavone's facial hair, mimicking Jesse's, just a straight black goatee, was constantly falling off.
Yeah, so Jesse pulled it off.
But whatever it was made out of, or portions of it, it was definitely coloured in black. So every time it goes back to Schiavone and Jesse, you'll notice that Schiavone's hands were getting blacker and blacker as the show went on. Hilarious.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay. Missy comes out wearing this white leather skirt and jacket opened in the front, exposing this like bright pink bra, and it's this short puff of hair. I have no idea what this was. She just didn't look good.
I think she was trying to look like kind of trashy.
Nasty, yeah.
She was with
She didn't need to do this.
Boys.
Didn't need to do this. Right, out comes Scorp and Bagwell. Their dancing is just unacceptable. Scorpio has rhythm, but it's still not great. But Bagwell is just so awkward. I hate Buff Bagwell.
Now, this was the second or third time of the night that the crowd inexplicably started chanting "Woof, there it is."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me this, because my knowledge on American football isn't great? Is this a chant that comes from New Orleans that was adapted into a song, or is this a chant that the New Orleans football team adopted from the song?
I think that's the way it was, yeah.
But Buff Bagwell starts doing it along with it. Do you have what Michael Buffer also announced Buff Bagwell as?
I may do, but I do have note on. Okay. Buffer says the Nasties are accompanied by their escort, Missy Hyatt.
Oh, yeah.
So she's a prostitute in the storyline. Buffer says Bagwell is a tag team champion in only his second year of wrestling, 2.5 years after he makes his WCW pay-per-view debut. What's he named Bagwell as?
Handsome Buff Bagwell.
I do remember now, yeah.
Handsome Buff Bagwell. Jesse and Tony also have a field day saying, finally we know what Missy Hyatt does around here. So that says a lot. Yeah, because Missy always had a reputation backstage, and this is just an example of them
I've written here that the whoop there it is chants were bigger than anything Daniel Bryan ever got at WrestleMania.
That's not true.
There's a nice high spot where Scorpio springs off Bagwell's back over the top rope to the floor. They get the heat in the bad on Bagwell. Jesus, Slubex. they Slubex him on the floor. Scorp gets the hot tag and makes a great comeback. Scorp hits the 450 and goes for the pin. But with the referee distracted, Sags hits Scorpio with the quote-unquote loaded boot. And the Nasties win it. I went 2 3/4. Meltzer went 3.5, which I thought was strong. This was the match was very well received at the time, but the finish was poorly received because every single match the Nasties won at that time had this finish, or it would be a megaphone if not a boot.
Yeah, the match was fine. You know, the Nasty Boys get a lot of slack, but they're very what's the word? They're capable, I suppose. Scorpio was very impressive for the time, for 1993, especially on a national broadcaster. And I would by no means say 3.5 stars, but I didn't hate it. Yeah.
Okay, Bischoff is in the back with Sid and Rob Parker, or Tennessee Lee as he'd later be known. Good promo. Sid, I have written, was just great in a lot of days. He was just a neon symbol of steroid wrestling. His work was the shits, but in hindsight, his matches are often so bad they're good, and his promos are too.
A neon symbol of steroid wrestling.
Yeah,
that's gorgeous, Ken.
He was stupid big here. Sting came out wearing neon green better than John Cena ever did.
So we missed something. We missed Vader coming out and spinning the wheel.
Oh, yeah. Well,
he spun the wheel to make the deal, basically. He got his full entrance. As the wheel was spinning, the pyro was going off, and him and Harley were anxiously waiting on what it was going to be. And it landed, unfortunately, in my opinion, on Texas Deathmatch, because not only was this not the most fruitful option on the list, it was also a stip that they butchered. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But the one that got me the most, Ken, was the one that interested me the most on the wheel, stipulation-wise, was a Prince of Darkness match. Now, do you know what a Prince of Darkness match is? Yeah. Neither do I, Ken, but we'll have to find out. One thing about Sid's entrance, if I can say as well. Yeah. This was just such a WCW trait, and Sid kind of did it in WWE a bit, but this is, I was kind of putting it together. Wrestlers always cut promos to camera during their entrances and during matches when the camera was... You remember the way WCW had the little stand in the corner?
Yeah.
Of the ring where, you know, the cameraman would be, unlike WWE, like they'd have this little... And wrestlers would always cut promos to it. What did you make of that?
It's kind of strange.
I really... during your entrance is fine, but the promos they would cut during matches... Sid actually did it here in this one as well. I really didn't like wrestlers doing promos and matches, and I can imagine how Vince would despise it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've written here that Sting should be in the Observer Hall of Fame just for his wardrobe.
It's insanity. It's a denim with like a neon green ensemble glitter.
When I watched the 90s WCW, I was never huge. I always thought Sting was much better when he was the Crow, but I have a lot of time for
Yeah, me
Pretty much
too.
his thing now.
He's like a good version of John Cena. He's a real white meat babyface. Like.
Never cut a promo like John did on Monday though. Listen,
Good.
largely because he didn't do the Make-A-Wish. Listen, there's a ludicrous spot
Never?
where the finish is stupid. Parker tries to grab the leg to help Sid get the pin, but he grabs the wrong leg, and Sid then confronts Parker, and Sting rolls him up for the pin.
Quick
star
match.
star and a half. Dave went 2.5.
Yeah. I never knew how big Colonel Lee Buddy Robert Parker Tennessee.
He's a tall man.
Never knew how tall he was. Besides saying, do you remember the bump he took at King of the Ring '98?
No.
Oh, it's the greatest selling you've ever seen in your life. It was him and Jarrett went to attack Shamrock after a match, and they did the spot like he just swung around Shamrock Duck, caught him in a belly, gave it to him, and the way he sold. If I
do remember this now.
he just he arched every single bone in his body
I
backward.
do remember this
So the
now.
back of his cowboy hat was almost touching the heel of his boot, while his hand was pressing into his back, and he was screaming his head off.
Okay, I do remember this. Actually.
A great man. Go on there.
Okay, so we see Vader in the locker room punching Race's hands.
Bare hands.
Yep.
And getting blown up. So not only did it expose the fact that Vader's punches were either Vader's punches were very puny, or Race had concrete mitts, and also the fact that Vader at one point takes a break and has his hands on his knees and goes back to doing it.
They show Jack sitting under a table, rocking back and forth. Very Mankind this, with his weird little satchel. Which, if you didn't see at the time, the satchel had some sort of meaning to him, but there was never anything in it.
The fucking quote. During the match, they're talking about him. That they shot an angle. I'm sure Ken's going to talk about this. They shot an angle months beforehand where Vader sent Cactus to the hospital, and they ran a storyline after that where Cactus lost everything. And if I can quote Schiavone when he's on the offense, he goes, "He went to the hospital. He lost his wife. He lost his family, and he lost his bag. But now he has his bag again." I was like, "What bag?"
But the thing is, they got it so messed up because the storyline was, you know, he had amnesia and all that.
Yeah.
But then it turned out he didn't really have amnesia. It was a work, basically. He could have probably say it was a work, right? But the commentators never clued in on this, so they kept saying it was a shoot. Like,
I think Schiavone's actual line is, "He lost his bag, but now he has found it." Amazing.
Okay, so Rude and Flair are out. Rude cuts his own.
Fascinating match, by the way. I never knew they had a pay-per-view match. I can't believe I didn't know that.
Or was the other one Clash of Champions? The other one was Clash, I think. Rude cuts his old WWF promo. I always found it weird the way he was never really ravishing Rick Rude after the WWF. He was just Rick Rude, pro wrestler, who happened to have that name, but he didn't really do the gimmick. You know?
Not really, and the music didn't suit it. It wasn't stripper music. It was
No,
kind
and he
of
didn't have the
upbeat
long
beach
hair.
music.
It's just, I always thought, and then again, 97, he wasn't ravishing Rick Rude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a really weird one. He's far more ravishing Rick Rude than he was. Are you going to talk about his tights here? He had a pumpkin on his arse, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had Flair on his left thigh, Flair's
Right.
face. He had Fifi on his right.
Yeah.
And Michael Buffer announced him as the man wearing Halloween colours.
Buffer is just awful here. He did his Let's Get Rage Rumble bit, which I'm sure the main eventers loved.
I loved watching Flair come actually down to the ring with Fifi, considering they're now together for quite some time.
This is his woman now, and this is 3 or 4 wives ago for him.
That's right.
They set off this weird pyro above the ring after Flair's introduction, which I think was meant to be for Flair, but it's not really very clear.
It was. Jesse goes, "All this for the challenger," and I shat myself.
The best part was Buffer introducing Rude as the reigning professional wrestling champion of the world. It's like covering all your bases there, son. Yeah, so as I said, in the Observer, I looked up, they had rescinded the title status as a world title a couple of weeks earlier, and then just given it back. It's like, okay, like, but you know, I just don't even know what's happening here.
No.
Right, this match, typical Flair match, really, nothing to it.
What? This was not a typical Flair match. If you want to say there's something to a Flair match, go for it. I found this
It was
very
toward the second half.
different.
Let me go through my notes and you can go through yours. The finish, this was really badly botched. Okay, so Rude has a foreign object in his hand, which looks like a piece of paper. Flair suplexes him. Yeah. Rude drops the object. A ringside photographer who isn't clued in moves the object into the corner of the ring. Flair then grabs the object after having to go and find it, nails Rude and has the pin. But when Terry Taylor goes to count the pin, the original referee, by the way, had been bumped. The original referee comes back in and stops him and explains that Flair has used the piece of paper. So Rude wins by DQ, and then there's just this like amateurish, you and your mates in the back garden brawl afterward. and Flair eventually gets the figure 4 on Roode on the ramp. On the ramp. I thought the match was uninspired, maybe 2 stars. The finish was dreadful. Meltzer went 3 1/4 at the time. The photographer, incidentally, had heat but wasn't punished.
That's incredible that we have that little nugget of information. I thought this was slightly different to a Rick match. They do one incredible bump to the outside at the start, a crossbody over that's pretty good. What else?
Just 19 minutes of non-stop non-psychology, really, wasn't it?
I thought there was a bit.
It was all right. It just was.
I would go 3.5. I thought that.
You would.
Oh, seriously? I thought
Listen, I could watch Bret Hart last week and admit it was a fucking shit match. Why can't you admit this?
I didn't think it was a shit match. That, by the way,
3.5 is strong, bro.
Ken is referring to the white piece of paper. It was actually white brass knucks.
It looked like paper, Neil.
I think it was brass knucks wrapped in some sort of paper.
I know very well. It was just a piece of paper they put some sellotape on.
Do you really think it was paper and sellotape?
I've seen these kind of things loads, and that's what it is like.
It's paper and sellotape.
It's the same piece of paper the assassin had in his mask. Can we move on here, please?
Of course.
Okay, so they explained the main event rules. It's non-title. Here's an interesting fact for you, right? Vader wrestled on all 6 WCW pay-per-views in 1993 as the champion, but he only defended the title twice, which means he had 4 pay-per-view matches where he wasn't defending the title, which seems really strange now, doesn't it?
It's fascinating. Another thing that I found fascinating, because when you think about Foley and Austin, the story's told that they were just misused and nobody really kind of capitalized on them until Vince got his hands on them, especially Austin. But what I found very interesting is the idea that Foley's fucking headlining this show as a babyface when you've got people like Sting and Flair as babyfaces and Steamboat.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right?
It's like kind of mental. Anyway.
So yeah, he only actually defended the title on TV 4 times in the entire year, Vader. So
TV or pay-per-view?
It was 2 Clash of Champions, 2 pay-per-view.
Whoa, okay.
That's it. All the rest of his matches.
And was his 4th defense against Flair at Starrcade?
There was the one against Flair at Starrcade. There was one against Davey on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
There was one against Davey on TV, and I can't remember the last one.
Amazing. Okay.
Okay. So this match is the match that's now known as Last Man Standing, only they had worse rules. So you have to pin a guy before you can do the 10 count gimmick, but before the 10 count begins, you get 30 seconds to rest, thus killing all drama. I thought, but I mean, it was still a good match.
Oh no, Ken, you're almost being too kind. These rules were terrible. What made it very confusing was when they were running down the rules on the screen. The way it was worded,
the rest period thing was so confusing.
It goes falls don't count, but after the fall,
yeah, falls don't count. After each fall, there's a 30-second rest period, and then they start talking about this 10-second thing. I was like, but hang on, there's a 30-second rest period.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying to Claire, Claire, this is a last man standing match, except the count only goes into effect when you get pinned and you've been down for longer than 30 seconds after that pin. So basically, it was a last man standing match, but instead of 10 seconds, it was 45 seconds.
Okay.
Unreal.
Vader comes out wearing his tights he wore all year that drove me fucking nuts because they said ADE on the side. Obviously, they said Vader, but he'd covered up the V with his little red pants that he wore over his tight, and he covered up the R with his black knee pads. So all year long, I mean, in every single pay-per-view, Clash of the Champions, he's wearing tights that just say ADE. Like he's advertising some sort of fucking product. Anyway, it drove me nuts. Vader's mask.
I'm so happy that drove you nuts.
Vader's mask is off within 37 seconds here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you know, Ken perpetually texts me every time he sees Vader without his mask. He gets so angry.
What did he wear it like?
It doesn't make sense. If
you told me he's kept it on most of the time.
You told me for 80. No, it's Vince.
Yeah, I'd say Vince would go mad if he just did this. Like.
He'd go crazy. It's like, we can make money off the goddamn match.
Yeah.
As in selling it and doing a mask match. But I think Ken texted me saying that, did you tell me that 80% of his appearances were without a mask or something?
Something like that, yeah.
What the fuck was the mask?
I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so these two are beating the absolute piss out of each other here. Jack hits Vader with the fan's camera. Jack gets opened up hard way by strikes.
Was that hard way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mick talks about it in his book. He hits a big side suplex on the ramp. Harley and his fucking mullet tried to interfere with the chair, but Jack cuts him off, the horrible bastard. They brawl over to the grave set, which is meant to be a tombstone for Vader. Jack gets a 3 count off a clothesline 6 minutes into the match. The psychology here is weird because think about this, right? Why wouldn't say you're getting beaten up? Why wouldn't you just allow yourself to be pinned so you can have half a minute to rest?
Oh no, absolutely.
Vader gets juiced pretty bad here. Vader gets up at a count of 2 of this 10.
There was so much arson about waiting for these 30-second counts.
I can't wait to tell you. I'll tell you at the end, right? Jack hits Vader with a fake cactus from the set, which I thought was funny. Jack hits a big elbow off the ramp and gets another pin, but he doesn't get 10 either. Jack puts a table in the ring, and I love how this felt unique, and the people were excited for it. It's like, oh my god, a table, a household ornament. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. This was kind of unique for the time.
Jack whips Vader into the table, and when I say Vader into the table, and Vader bumps on it, like it bounces on the table and falls backward, which is kind of strange. But it feels much more dangerous than modern day last man standing matches, as opposed to choreographed. It's a very different feel.
I kind of
I really got into the match, which is sometimes it's hard to get into these matches that are old, you know.
The Stip killed it. I think it was a great match that Stip killed.
Mick does his sunset flip to the floor just to upset me and you.
Oh man!
I've written everyone in the building is standing. I just really noticed that people are like, this is different to what you would see at the time.
Yeah.
And
they also didn't have a jumbotron, so if you're doing a lot of crowd brawling, that's kind of part and parcel.
Yeah, but I'm talking when they were in the ring toward the finish.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to poo-poo your.
Mick flips over the guardrail at Vader, but he's supposed to be like flipping over the guardrail onto Vader, but just kind of falls. Looks very painful. And Vader then kind of picks him up and almost backdrops him over the railing onto the concrete. Just really brutal stuff.
Always brutal.
These took years off Mick's life.
I have never seen a Clash of the Champions or pay-per-view match where Foley hasn't. Yep, there you go.
Vader gets a pin off a moonsault. Doesn't get the 10 count though. Mick gets on Vader's back and Vader cuts a hard bump on the ramp.
Jesus. This was the same bump that Foley took against Big Show at the WrestleMania, but the fact it's on the fucking ramp.
And this was the one that, if he writes in his book, he believed with Vader's weight and the force of the ramp that this would injure him so badly he'd have to retire and he'd claim his Lloyd's of London insurance policy. And he says when he realised he was hurt but no worse than usual, he was devastated and he had to just keep wrestling.
So Foley was literally trying to get himself
career,
and was trying to end his career.
Yeah.
In 1993.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me?
No. Go read his book. It seems strange in hindsight because it's not even the planned finish. You know?
I have read his book. I was just about 10 years younger than I am now, so no recollection.
15 years, 1999.
You're probably right. I fucking hell.
Vader nails him with a hard chair shot, then a DDT on the ramp on the chair.
Yeah.
So the rest period begins after Vader pins him, and then Jack DDTs Vader during the rest period and gets a pinfall during the rest period. So the ref begins to count to 10, but he's counting both Vader and Jack. Now, Vader should, of course, have had a 30-second rest period beginning when he was pinned, but for some reason he's being leveled with the same 10 count as Mick is, even though he shouldn't be. It makes no sense, but then again, it's the same as the finishes of Rocky 2, and no one was complaining about that. Jack gets up while the referee is looking at Vader, and he's standing on his feet. There's no denying it.
Yep.
And Race then tasers him, and
in the leg.
He cuts a bump. By the way, this was a real fucking taser.
Yep. But because it was a real taser, the reaction was probably real, but it looked delayed because what we saw was a blue flash across the back of Mick's tie, but we didn't see him sell it for a few seconds. Mm-hmm. And that was probably just a natural effect, but it looked so phony. The amount of... This is the fourth botch finish on the show.
So the referee sees Vader get up, turns around and sees Mick down, and even though Mick could well have gotten up, and indeed did, he just announces Vader as the winner. And I was just like, what?
Yeah,
very strange.
Very confusing.
This took the match down a lot. The announcers then lead us out of the show and sound so bored in doing so. Couple of notes. Is there anything you want to say about that match?
Yeah, just again, fourth botch finish on the show. I don't know what's going to get your 10,000 car crashes award, but I just give finishes the award on this show myself.
Yeah, I was going to go with one of the spots in one of the early matches, but definitely.
But this was a brutal match. Vader and Foley had quite a few matches that people still talk about today, but I believe, as I said earlier, it was just hampered by the stip. But so, what notes do you have on the show?
I said to you last week that Super Bowl 3 was considered WCW's best show, okay?
In terms of star ratings?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
That's because of it's the only WCW show ever which had more than 3 4-star plus matches, okay?
Okay.
But I actually sat down and I was looking through Dave's star ratings as I was putting them on. I was like, there's an awful lot of like 3.5, 2 3/4, 2 3/4, 3.5, 2 3/4, 3 1/4, and then the main event, which I'll come to in a second. And I was like, these are awful high. So being the geek that I am, there were 8 matches at both shows. I added up the star ratings, got an average.
Yeah.
And it was just under 3 1/4 was the average on this show. And it was 2 3/4 on Super Bowl 3. So if you want to be technical about it, it was the most consistently good pay-per-view they ever did.
Could there not be another one that's on average better as well?
It's possible. I just know that I'd always heard that this was considered their best show.
Great American Bash 89, no? On an average, has to.
Maybe I'll look at that. I will look at that one tonight.
4, 4.5, and a 5.
I'll look at that one tonight, okay?
Do.
Listen, I thought this match was 4 stars. I thought it was great.
Okay.
What did you think?
I go 3 3/4 because of the stip killed me. Killed me dead, my friend.
Do you know what Dave Meltzer went with?
I'd say he went pretty high for the time.
What do you think?
I'd say he probably went 4 1/4, 4.5.
4 3/4.
What?
And if it wasn't for the finish, it would have gone 5. And this is, according to his rating system, the best match that Vader or Mick ever had.
Ever had?
I don't believe either of them ever had a 5-star.
I
know Mick didn't. It's possible Vader did, but which is interesting. I mean, it is. I do know when watching it, I was thinking to myself, I was able to lose myself in it enough to really get what that feeling would have been like. But the finish took it down for me, and the 30 seconds between, the rest period was kind of silly.
Meltzer, I believe, gave Mind Games 4 3/4 and said it would have been 5- for the finish as well.
Okay, there you go.
As well, I personally, I would think that the Street Fighter Royal Rumble 2000 was a superior match.
Really?
Oh man, that's a perfect match.
I always felt like that was. I just felt like that's just a match that I always thought everyone else thought was a lot better than I thought it was. And I'm
interesting.
I'm a huge Mick fan, but I just never thought it was that great. Actually, I preferred the Hell in a Cell match a month later.
That was really good, actually.
I would have gone to say 4 1/4 for that, and maybe 3 3/4 for the Rumble 4.
3 3/4. Tell me this: give me a Mick match right now that you'd give a higher rating than that for. All I'm asking is, you can't say this is one of your favorite Mick matches ever, would you?
Oh no, I mean I love the Revenge of Taker match, the King of the Ring match with Taker.
King of the Ring 96.
Yeah, I love that match. I had so many great matches with The Rock as well. That whole feud, the November, December, January, February with The Rock, there were a lot of good matches.
There was actually a lot of good
The
matches.
one with Edge was great.
The WrestleMania match?
I even thought the 6-person at a One Night Stand.
Man, that is a fucking great match.
That
is a brilliant.
Really? I mean, that could be 4 1/4, 4.5.
It is excellent. Those two.
But honestly, I think the one with Sean, it's such a shame about the finish.
That one with Sean is just
a blown finish as well.
Yeah, I know, but the one with Sean, it's like I really think that wrestling fans don't even kind of, maybe, how do I say this? You don't really kind of comprehend maybe what should go into rating a match. Like, I've heard people who I wouldn't trust their opinion regurgitating that line. Oh, that match is so good except for the finish. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is your opinion. And obviously I'm not saying that the finish is a good thing, but what doesn't get talked about is every single spot in that match from beginning to end is not something you see every day, and it's just it builds.
The working on the hand.
It's just so different and so good, and it builds.
The way
so
the
well.
table is organically kind of, he moves it, and then it comes back in later. The super kick with the chairs. I mean,
and that was Foley's very generous to Sean in his book about when he talks about it being his best match in his first book. But like, we've heard now that basically it was one of those cases where Sean was getting blown out in '96 to the point where he, was hitting the road hard. He wasn't super creative. He was feeling the pressure from WCW. And Mick, that was Mick's match.
That's the best match he ever. I know he prefers the one with Randy. I thought that was a better match.
That Randy match is awesome too. But that Randy match is a product of a big production company. While as '96 was like two lads being very clever.
Yeah, see that's what has always hurt some of Mick's later matches, and I specifically think of that Rumble match you mentioned, the Orton match, and the Flair match at SummerSlam, where it almost feels like watching Abyss, where it's just like, when's the next gimmick coming out? You know what I mean?
Okay, that's very fair, especially with the
and the Melina finish takes a star off.
Well, we're never going to agree on that. Any final notes before we say goodnight?
No, I really enjoyed that show, I have to say. More than Super Bowl, actually.
Yeah, me too, I think.
Because Super Bowl peaked earlier, and it kind of... I mean, the main event was great, but it had a couple of bad matches. I think the Wyndham match was poor, but the show peaked at the end.
You got some fun stuff in it. You know, you got just the Halloween feel of it. Again, the Shockmaster being in the opening match, that horrible babyface tag team, and the fact that your 6 main eventers are Ric Flair, Sting, Sid, Vader, Cactus Jack, and Rick Rude.
That is great. Yeah,
that's great, man. That's whatever order you put them in, whatever way you match them
matches,
up.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, well, on that note, we hope you enjoyed today's show.
And next week review will be.
Oh, sorry. Next week we're sticking with WCW, and this is like right in the heart of WCW destroying WWE, but from my vantage point, this is when WCW are actually initially starting to show some cracks. We're going to go with Slamboree 97.
Do you know what the main event of that show is, by any chance? Is it Paige and Savage?
No, they only do an angle on the show. It's Hogan Luger, is it? I'm not too sure. But anyway, I'm just on there at the moment. The reason I'm not too sure is because the go home angle was Sting laying out fake Sting and Eric Bischoff. The third time they had done that angle in a year. And it has nothing to do with the pay-per-view.
Wonderful.
This is WCW. This is when they started doing
Wheels
stuff like
falling
this. Okay, so we're going to review that next week. If you guys want to catch it on the network between now and then, that'd be great. That show will be up on the 17th. Myself and Ken will be back with our MMA segment on 103.2 FM this coming Sunday at 4 o'clock. And of course, every single archive and current show of This Ain't Fake and MMA and Dublin City FM are available at thisaintfake.com. We really appreciate people listening. The listenership for both shows is going up every single week. I'm getting feedback every week. It's actually helping me reconnect with people I haven't talked to in a long time, because there's a lot of us wrestling fans out there, but maybe, you know, we haven't talked about it in a long time to each other. Maybe the network is helping people come back into it. I don't know. But either way, it's great to talk about what's going on now. It's great to talk about what's going on in the future.
If you enjoy it, tell a couple of friends.
Yeah, and definitely do. A link, a like, a share is just priceless for us at the moment, because we're doing this as a labour of love. We're never going to stop doing it, but it puts the smiles on our face when we know that people are enjoying it, and the more the merrier. So until next week, or if you're MMA inclined this Sunday, on behalf of me and Ken, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again really soon.